Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Is this watch tougher than a G-Shock? Is there anything actually tougher than a G-Shock? That is the question today, and I suspect we both probably know the answer to that one already. But what if you want a tough tactical timepiece or super robust EDC watch, but just can't stand Casio? Well, there are some options for you. There are plenty of watches by the likes of Marathon and Luminox that will serve you well. But I think this could be the most purposeful of the lot. It is by the Military Watch Company, which seems like a reasonable place to start. It is made of titanium, it features tritium tubes on the dial and hands, a dial that, by the way, does not feature any form of branding whatsoever. First time I have ever seen that, a real statement of intent, if you see what I mean. Now, I didn't just buy one, it is kindly on loan to the channel from a subscriber down in Tassie called William. He loaned me his Steinhardt GMT last year, and this year he has loaned me his MWC. Thanks, mate. Much appreciated. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. And there it is. Box. Who needs a box? Boxes are for wusses. Well, I assumed that it did come in a box, but William didn't send the box to me here in Sydney. Honestly, it's not really important. The people that buy this type of watch will be unconcerned about packaging. I'm fairly convinced of that. The whole thing has a real kind of army surplus feel to it. Perhaps unsurprisingly, because this one is built to military specifications. Specifically, US specification MIL-W-46374, this one being a Type 6, the latest iteration, emanating from the mid-1990s. That specification has evolved over the years, hence this one is a Type 6, including long life battery, anti-magnetism, corrosion-resistant case, elapsed time bezel, tritium hands and indices, and a degree of waterproofness. Now, this watch goes way beyond those specs. It's a set of 90 specs, I guess, at its heart. This one adds titanium case, sapphire crystal, 300 meters of water resistance from a screw-down crown and a screw-on case back. And this watch maintains its accuracy uncompensated at altitudes of up to 40,000 feet. So certainly a step up from the original specs back in the 90s. Talking of 90s, it looks like the Military Watch Company haven't updated their website since the 1990s. A variety of different options. You've got date, you've got no date, you've got a raw titanium look, you've also got a DLC. William opted for the no date in raw titanium. About 265 quid, 340 US dollars, or approximately 465 Aussie dollars will get you one of these. 2-year warranties on all of them. Now, one interesting thing on their website, they justify the use of sapphire crystal. Now, perhaps with a mil-spec watch, many of you would have been expecting mineral crystal. This makes for interesting reading though. Of course, I'll leave a link to their website and that Wikipedia article in the description of the video. They say that 90% of the watches returned to them for repair with cracked crystals are from their mineral crystals, not sapphire. I have been saying this for years in relation to Seiko's Harlex. It is easy to scratch mineral, it is easy to crack mineral, it is actually quite difficult to shatter sapphire. So 42 millimeters in diameter, 13.9 mil thick. That doesn't include this single pass nylon, I'll talk about that later. 49 mil lug to lug, 22 mil lug width, and I did mention titanium, 63 grams as supplied, so not a lot of weight. 300 meters of water resistance discussed, flat sapphire crystal also discussed. I don't think there's any anti-reflective undercoating. Do you see any anti-reflective undercoating? That will be appearing in the moans and niggles section a little bit later on. Now, it's quite an interesting angled case shape, a little bit samurai-esque there with those flat edges. Little guarded crowns, again, multiple angles here. Unsigned crown, you wouldn't expect a signed crown, would you, if they're not putting their brand logo or name on the dial at all. So lots of facets here, but it is all fairly plainly finished. This is the raw titanium version. They don't mention any kind of coating in their website, so I assume it is just a kind of raw bead blasted finish to this one. 120 click, unidirectional, elapsed time diving style bezel here. Again, part of the mil specs. It's actually pretty good for a titanium watch. They don't always have good feeling bezels. Everything lines up on this one nicely. Yeah, quite satisfying overall that. And it's a very simple screw-on titanium caseback. I often talk about people printing the spec sheet on the caseback. They don't often go to this extent though, do they? Again, no brand here, just wristwatch, military, multi-purpose, Triggerlight advertising those H3T25 tubes on the front. It's even got the contract date here and the serial number and confirming that water resistance at 300 meters. Now obviously you saw it's a quartz movement. By the power of video editing, we shall look through that case back at the Ronda 715 Li, featuring 10 years of battery life and a low battery indicator. How do they get 10 years of battery life? They get it by using a vast battery. It's a CR2016. These are cents. You'll be changing this one yourself every decade and it'll cost you about 50 cents to do it. Zero maintenance, zero hassle. A great idea for this type of watch. Let's have a look at the dial and hands then under macro lens outside, and yes, all incredibly legible. Those military specifications that I discussed earlier on even specify the fonts to use to enhance the legibility, and white on black printing certainly enhances the legibility, does it not? So those big Arabics are just printed on, 1 to 12 around the outer edge, 13 to 24 in the middle, this being the no date version. There's no space taken up by a date window. You also see the little radioactive symbol on the right hand side by the 3 and the H3 near the 9 o'clock, representing tritium, a hydrogen isotope that is radioactive. But don't worry, all the radioactive material on the watch is contained within those little vials. The radioactivity doesn't actually penetrate the glass, so you're not going to give yourself arm cancer by wearing one of these or any other tritium watch. You can see those big tubes quite clearly in the hour hand and the minute hand. Again, white syringe style, very, very easy to spot against the black dial. And it's an arrowhead style second hand with counterbalance, again in white. Now the tritium tubes on the hour markers sit elevated above the dial. I wouldn't really call it a chapter ring, it's certainly not angled like your typical chapter ring, but they sit just under the surface of the sapphire crystal. And it's an interesting bezel as well. Those Arabics are scalloped. It doesn't particularly help with manipulating the bezel. Perhaps it will mean they don't get scratched quite as easily, and that white paint inlaid into the bezel has a better chance of surviving the rough and tumbles of the lifestyle of people who buy this type of watch. Overall, it's simple and it's incredibly legible, which is the point. And it is also incredibly legible after dark thanks to those T25 tritium tubes on the hands and on the indices. Now I have reviewed several watches with T100, which is much, much brighter. In practice, with a tactical style of watch, you don't really want a torch on your wrist, but you do want to be able to see it. T25 absolutely allows that. One slightly odd decision here though, if I turn the speed up, you can see they haven't put a T25 tube on the second hand. So the lume on the second hand does fade. It's also a loomed pip on the bezel insert. The lume pip on the bezel insert does quite well. It's beginning to fade towards the end of the 20-minute test period, unlike those tritium tubes, which will begin to fade in 2034, having a half-life of just over 12 years. On wrist, it is all about legibility, wearability, and a surprising amount of comfort actually. Single pass straps are usually pretty comfortable on wrist. You can always change that out for something else yourself. And 14mm thick is pretty thick, pretty girthy, but the fact that it is made of titanium and only comes in at 63 grams certainly offsets this watch's bulk. It is incredibly legible though, isn't it? The hands, the hour markers, the minute markers, and the Arabics on the bezel beyond that, all very, very visible from pretty much all angles, unless the sun gets involved, unless the light gets involved with that flat sapphire crystal. And it's the same in natural light. Again, white on black, very, very legible, unless you're in the wrong angle in terms of the sun. On wrist, I suspect this size is going to wear well on most people under 50mm lug to lug. Nice downturn from those slightly angular lugs as shown earlier on, and a single pass nylon NATO style. I think a good choice with this one, helping it sit nice and flush to the wrist. And that's the pocket shot to finish. I suspect because this one is lighter, most people would wear it tighter. It'll be fairly comfortable that way, but look, if you want to go out a hole and have it rolling around your wrist, that's entirely up to you. So, rugged, lightweight, super reliable, set and forget. Because William went for the no date version, you're probably going to be adjusting this one a minute either way every 4 or 5 months for the next decade. A really good long-term kind of grab and go piece choice, this one. Lightweight, it's going to fit a variety of wrist sizes as a consequence as well, but I do have a few moans and niggles, a few areas of improvement. Yeah, why no tritium tube on the bezel insert? Why no tritium tube on that second hand? I have seen several watches with tritium tubes that have them on the second hand. Not sure sure, bit of an odd choice here. The supplied nylon single pass strap is okay if not awesome. It's almost impossible to thread this one through the back end of the buckle here, meaning you're going to wear it loose. It's only got a single retainer, so there's the potential for that to catch. But like I said, 22mm lug width, you'll have no problem replacing it if you feel the need to. And it is a bit thick. I know it's 300 meters, but 14mm thick is perhaps a little chunkier than I would have expected from a quartz movement. Really, there's no reason why they couldn't have got a mil shaved off that. It would have sat better on wrist, especially on single pass and double pass nylons, which I'm sure are this watch's bread and butter in terms of strap choices. And it's actually quite uncomfortable to unscrew the crown because the bezel protrudes and it's got that kind of sawtooth edge, slightly sharp underside of those crown guards as well. Yeah, once you unscrew the crown, you feel like you're kind of scraping your fingers across the bezel at the top and against those crown guards at the bottom. But again, complaints like that are for people who enjoy packaging, i.e. wusses like me. This one is perhaps a little too tactical for my taste, but it has got me thinking about tritium again. I kind of got halfway into tritium last year, but then forgot about it mid-year and moved on to other things. This watch has me looking at fresh tritium tube watches for my collection and for review on the channel. But if you're the type of person that wears combat trousers with a camouflage pattern tucked into your army surplus boots, this may well be the ideal watch for you if you're after a grab and go, set and forget, no nonsense timepiece that'll last you for decades in a truly unpretentious manner. So there you have it, perhaps not as tough as a G, but if this one breaks while you're wearing it, you'll have bigger things to worry about than your watch. That's for sure. If you are into this serious military hardware look, why not check out my review of the CWC Mellor or the small but perfectly formed Marathon. Thanks for watching. See you soon.